Yo, 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 just before we get started today, I'm gonna jump in. This is Future Simon here, recording something before the video you're about to see, just to say that this weekend is something called Labor Day. I have no idea what that is. To me, Labour is a political party, but apparently it's a holiday in the US, and Teespring, the company that do the merch, are an American company. So if you use the code Labor Day, one word, spelt without the U, because in the UK we spell Labour L-A-B-O-U-R. Just Labor Day, L-A-B-O-R, day, Labor Day, one word. God, am I belaboring this? You will be able to go over and get 10% off merch until Tuesday. There are new merch items. This is the Keep Calm and Blaze On t-shirt, which feels very British for a American sale day. But there's also the Free Danny t-shirt, and there's a few other ones that you guys have been asking for. So 10% off. Enjoy your Labor Day, Americans, whatever that might be. Let's get into the video. Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of Business Blaze. I am your boy with the blaze, aka Simon. In this one, we've got something that is totally unrelated to business because I have no good reasons for this anymore. Sometimes we just don't cover business topics. My apologies. If you've clicked on this expecting something intelligent, well, you've come to the wrong place. This is the Criminal Darwin. Oh, I know why we did this. Because we did all these corporate Darwin Awards, like part 1, part 2, part 17, and they did really well. So I was like, well, let's just do a regular Darwin's Awards because I'm a bit bored of the corporate one. So here we go. Welcome. What happens here, if you are new, is that Danny writes me a script. I shall read the script and be unfunny, and then Sam will add some memes. If you're wondering why this paper looks weird, it's because I ran out of paper again, and I tore these off like an old bad that I got from a Congress center, so I just printed it on the back. So that's what's happening. On a desolate corner of a cold and wet beach in Blackpool, a solitary figure sits on a stripy deck chair, seemingly oblivious to the wind howling around his bony ears and the dark ripples of a storm creeping ever closer to his chosen spot. 2 comments here. 1, I love the fact that now Danny starts every Business Blaze with a story because I once told him that I really liked it. 2nd comment, is there such a thing? I don't think there's bone in your ear. I think it's cartilage. Do people have bony ears? His skeletal features largely hidden by a long black cloak. The figure props up his scythe next to the deck chair, lights up a Strand cigarette, releases a satisfied groan, and then starts flicking through the pages of Reader's Digest. Why? Even death deserves a day off every now and then. If it means, yeah, death definitely doesn't have ears, Danny. Even if it means some people have to wait a little longer than usual to feel his icy grasp around their necks. In the case of 21-year-old Michael Anderson Goldwyn from South Carolina, he probably felt as if it dodged a visit from the Grim Reaper back in 1981. Have you guys, I assume most people have seen that Final Destination film? That is fucking creepy. Where it's like, oh yeah, you survived a roller coaster accident, which bizarrely we covered in detail on a recent Business Blaze. Then it's like death is hunting you and you're gonna die in all these crazy ways. I quite liked it. I think there's probably like Final Destination 2, 3, 4 and whatever. I think I saw the first one. Wait, but that was a plane, and then there was one with a roller coaster, and that's all. I've been spending my time watching Final Destination instead of movies like The Godfather, which I was like, why haven't you seen The Godfather? I was like, I don't know, I don't really like gangster movies. I saw Goodfellas, it's alright. Oh, I did like that one with, oh god, but it wasn't really a gangster movie. With Kaiser Sose, The Usual Suspects, that was good. After being found guilty of a brutal murder while on work release from prison, oh no, we're talking about killing again. It's never funny. I was like, yeah, I could make it funny. I couldn't. From prison on an earlier savage offense, he was sentenced to death by electric chair. This was later controversially commuted to a life prison sentence. But death had clearly already made a note in his Filofax, and he wasn't impressed about this last-minute pissing about with a change of plans. A few years later in prison, wait, you survived for a few years? That's okay. Like, if I was in the electric chair and then I got to live for a few years afterwards, I'd be like, it's pretty good. A few years later in prison, Michael showed why men should never try to multitask. While sitting naked on a metal toilet, he was simultaneously attempting to repair a pair of headphones which were plugged into the television set. After deciding to bite through one of the headphone cables, Michael electrocuted himself and died instantly on that metal toilet. Oh, Michael, what are you doing? Although I wouldn't think there would be enough electricity coming through like a headphone plug on a television. But also, don't bite through cables that are plugged. Don't bite through cables, number 1, Mikey. Number 2, don't bite through cables that are plugged in. Lesson learned. Like, my 9-month-old baby tries to bite through cables. so we had to childproof the house, because I came into the room one day, she was chewing on like on an electricity cable leading to a lamp, and I'm like, whoa, don't do that. Gonna have to get those cables out of the way now, because you've got teeth. Oh god, I'm a terrible father. It was as if he was determined to carry out his original sentence that he felt he deserved, but with just a slightly less dignified hot seat. Yeah, dying on the toilet is not how anyone wants to go. We seem to have become a bit preoccupied with the comedy goldmine of death in recent Business Place videos. Oh god, it's not there, is it, Danny? And we may as well keep going while we're on a roll. But at least, this time, we're looking at criminals who very probably had it coming, rather than double amputee war veterans falling out of roller coasters. Although our recent corporate Darwin Awards videos have taken a look at some of the most ridiculous self-implosions of businesses, this time we're getting back to basics, with a look at some of the failed hoodlums who managed to do the world a favour by removing themselves from the human gene pool while carrying out their dastardly deeds. How the fuck do I come up with a show? It's like, yeah, do Darwin Awards, but just for criminals. I think I was like, yeah, corporate Darwin Award sounds good. Criminal Darwin Award sounds good. I did really realize the implication that we're just going to be talking about criminals who got Darwin Awards. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Welcome to The Blaze. I can't call myself The Blaze. I can't say that because there's that right-wing channel called The Blaze. And I took the piss out of them, and all the right-wingers in the comments are like, oh, The Blaze is a very legitimate news source. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not, is it? Oh, chill out. Don't worry. It's like Michael Moore's also f***ing crazy. Don't worry. Every side has their weirdos. Although it does seem like the right has more of them, doesn't it? So this time we'll be looking at stories such as the Scottish railway enthusiast who decided he fancied a bit of free copper. The electric trains in Glasgow pick up their power from overhead cables which transmit any excess through the rails to a solid copper cable which redirects to a power redistribution box. I know people steal copper cables, but they do run electricity, so do be careful. The railway enthusiast sounds like he's just a petty criminal, studied his train timetable carefully and worked out there would be a 10-minute slot in which no trains would be travelling on the rails and no electricity flowing through the copper cables. Well, at least he did that. So this would be an ideal opportunity to cut through the reasonably valuable copper cables and make off with them. Later that day, the police found his charred remains on the tracks. After rifling through his deep-grilled overcoat, they came across a timetable that was out of date. Oh no, use the internet. Oh, I remember train timetables. They were these little fold-out books that had all these tiny numbers in them, and I'm like, oh, the past was lame. Oh my god, I don't know if it'll be out yet, but I've had our designer create a t-shirt which just says, the past was the worst. I f***ing love it. I'm sure no one will buy it, because it's just one of my favourite sayings, so I largely wanted it for myself, but that's the joy of being the boy with the blaze. If I want something, if I want a t-shirt that says, you know, face, I can just get that made up. If you want a t-shirt that says faced about your friends as a joke, or maybe if you are a face, no one buys themselves a t-shirt that says face. If people buy enough of that, I'll wear it. But even with slightly more careful planning, so many of these misled souls who venture off the rails, seem destined to book a disastrous date with death, even when he appears to just be chilling out on the beach for a bit with a game of Travel Scrabble. Danny, what is going on? You can't play Travel Scrabble by yourself. Here are some of the more notable scoundrels who died in the name of criminal stupidity. I feel like that was the introduction, but we also got two really good stories, so thanks, Danny. Bonus. Missed target. Although the Scottish railway enthusiast, oh my god, we're back here again, made one minor mistake in his plan to steal a bit of copper, here's a guy whose plan seemed fatally flawed in just about every possible aspect. In 1990, American David Zabak decided to hold up a store in Renton Highlands near Seattle in Washington. He could have gone for a bank or a post office or a supermarket or a service station, but no, David's cunning plan was to hold up a gun store. Oh, David. Yeah, everyone knows this. Have you not played Grand Theft Auto? You don't hold up the ammunition. You go in there and the guy's like, he's got a knock-off shotgun. He's like, "Butcher me." Oh, yeah. Should have realized that. The problem with holding up gun stores is there tends to be other guns all over the place, as well as ammunition for the guns, and a lot of customers who like guns and are probably carrying guns. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, in Grand Theft Auto, you're in the ammunition. It's just the guy. But it's also like, bro, everyone else in that store's good at. They have a gun range in the back, dude. Don't rob there. Come on. On this particular day, there was also a marked police car right outside the store. But this didn't seem to bother David. He walked cheerfully around the police car and made a dramatic entrance into the store with his .38 caliber semi-automatic pistol, announcing his intention to rob the joint. The place was packed out with gun-loving customers. David, you are a fucking dum-dum, aren't you? One of the dudes inside the store was the owner of the vehicle outside, an armed veteran of the King County Police Force who was enjoying a coffee with the store's owner. Can you imagine him like, dude, Really? It's like a comedy movie. It's like, the cop in my mind would be Vince Vaughn. And Vince Vaughn would just look at him with that Vince Vaughn face like, really? Dude. Come on. That's a terrible Vince Vaughn impression, but you know what I'm talking about. Perhaps realizing that at the last second that this wasn't the greatest idea in the world, David panicked and opened fire. No! It's unclear how many shots were fired, as some of David's clumsy shots actually struck ammunition on the counter, causing it to explode. It seems that another minor niggle in his strategy was that he wasn't very good at firing a gun. What is clear is that both the police officer and the store's owner were quick to return far more accurate fire, and David was shot 3 times in the chest. He died from his wounds in the hospital a few hours later. Thankfully, nobody else was injured. I mean, it's sad that he died. I mean, is it? No. Like, I don't know, dude. If he was just robbing the store and he didn't fire it, then I'd be like, okay, he's just desperate. But don't fire your gun. Just use it as a threat. Pro tip. Also, another pro tip for all of you budding gun robbery folks out there. Don't rob a fucking gun store. We'll never know if David's about any follow-up schemes, but I imagine that he was already planning to loot the petty cash box at the United States military. Gun stores, I'm sure they have some money. I mean, guns aren't cheap. But you know where also fucking money? Banks and shit. Escape into danger. Back in 2005, a South African mugger very probably allowed himself a second of self-congratulation when he figured out he'd managed to escape from a mob of angry security guards. Along with a buddy, he'd been up to no good at... oh god. Bloemfontein. No, it's Dutch or like Afrikaans, I guess. So it's like Bloemfontein. ETA, you speak Dutch. Say Bloemfontein.
Bloemfontein. Let me come back. I beg of you.
No! About 400 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg. They were in the process of taking a cell phone and a purse from a young couple at knife point when the woman suddenly screamed in terror and a team of security guards burst onto the scene. The other mugger was reasonably fit and managed to evade capture from the guards by swiftly legging it. But it seems as if the first mugger had been overindulging in Scotch eggs and he was a bit out of shape. Oh god. If you're a duo mugging people and you got a knife, why does there need to be 2 of you for 1? And also 2, if you're that guy who ran away, you'd be like, oh no, please don't turn on me, Peter. Brew. As the guards gave pursuit, he was getting increasingly out of puff and was aware that they were getting closer and closer. Turning a corner, he spotted a high fence. Oh no, this is the Darwin Awards. He's not going to be able to turn on anyone because he's going to die. He spotted a high fence and managed to sum up his last reserves of energy to scale the fence and drop down 10 meters onto the other side. Oh no, he's at a zoo, isn't he? He's at the Bloemfontein Zoo. Oh no, there's going to be like a tiger or some in there. The zoo guards didn't notice this and raced right past the fence, very probably in the direction of the wild geese. Oh, I like it. Ba-da-bum-bum. The mugger must have paused to catch his breath and give himself a well-deserved pat on the back before he heard a faintly alarming growling noise. Oh no, it's a tiger or a bear or something. This is the worst way to go. What he'd actually gone and done was throw himself into a cage with 2 Bengal tigers, who began to slowly show great interest in the new visitor who'd come to play. And tigers play very differently to humans. They play with your insides. The security guards eventually gave up the chase, assuming the mugger had managed to get away. It wasn't until feeding time a few hours later that a zookeeper came across a human corpse in the tiger cage, which had been brutally mauled to death. Yeah, dude. The guy comes in, hey, why aren't the tigers hungry? Oh, It's not the first time that a South African criminal has been dished out justice from a zoo animal. Jesus Christ, South Africa. A few years earlier in 1997, a fleeing gunman had made the mistake of jumping into the enclosure of a 200-kilogram gorilla called Max. In a panic, the gunman shot and wounded Max, but that didn't stop Max from performing a citizen's arrest and pinning the gunman against the wall until the police arrived. Okay, that's the first time you're grateful for falling into the gorilla cage. Oh, thank fuck it's not the tigers. Those bastards. Pinprick. Next one. When PAL flight, or PAL maybe, I don't know, 812 took to the skies. Oh my god, I saw a great movie the other day. That's 7500 from Amazon Studios on Amazon Prime with Joseph Gordon-Levitt is really good. Definitely worth a watch. It's really sad. Took to the skies from Francisco Bangui Airport in Davao at 2 p.m. on the 25th of May 2000. The craft was carrying 278 passengers as it headed towards Manila. Sadly, one of the passengers was a raving nutter called Augusto Lacandula. About an hour into the flight, he suddenly donned a blue ski mask and swimming goggles and took out a handgun and a grenade from his hand luggage. Ah yes, pre-9/11, when you could of course just board a plane with a gun and a grenade. This alone makes me think that Francisco Bangui Airport really needed to tighten up their security procedures just a little bit. Yeah, no sh**. He then marched into the forward galley, where some of the cabin crew were seated, and pointed the gun at the flight attendant's head and announced that this was a stick-up. It appears that Augusto's only ambition was to rob the passengers on board the flight and then parachute out of the plane with all the dough. What are you doing? How much money do you think they have on them? It's like when I'm traveling, it's in my hand luggage, I don't know, $100 maybe. The rest of the money is in my bank, so when I go to the country, I can go to an ATM and get some money in, you know, the currency that I'm gonna have to use. Although I guess this was 2000, so maybe people took money with them. Also, can you parachute out of a commercial jetliner? It's pretty f***ing high. It sounds like an odd plan, but he did manage to drum up $25,000 in total from the passengers before ordering the plane to be lowered to 6,500 feet to carry out the last phase of his master plan. Okay, that makes sense. He did get it down to a reasonable altitude. This seems wildly dangerous though. I've parachute jumped. And the idea of parachute jumping out of a plane, I mean, those engines are really big. I feel like they're gonna f*** you up somehow. Augusto pulled out, oh no, he is gonna get stuck in the engine or something, isn't he? That would be pretty rough. Augusto pulled out a homemade nylon parachute. Bro. Homemade parachute. Two words that should never be put together. From his seemingly bottomless hand luggage, in which what the f*** was airport security up to that day? Oh yeah, you got a ski mask, gun, grenade, and a homemade parachute. Welcome to PAL Airlines. Some witnesses claimed it looked more like a repurposed tent. Then after strapping on the parachute, he ordered the opening of the rear door of the plane, but hadn't seemed to realize that things can suddenly get quite breezy when you're standing near an open door of a plane which is thousands of feet in the air. He ended up getting a bit stuck, pinned in such a position that he was half outside the plane and half inside the cabin. At this point, the head of the cabin crew, a guy called Francis Cable, noticed that Augusto had relinquished control of the gun but was still clutching tightly onto his grenade while battling against the elements. Francis made a split-second decision. Reasoning that Augusto had always intended to parachute his way out of the plane, but appeared to be experiencing difficulty in doing this, Francis gave him a friendly shove down on his wings. It's amazing. Bosh! The grenade's gonna go off, isn't it? Oh no! The final retaliatory act of Augusto Lacundula was to remove the pin from the grenade and toss it into the cabin. What a fucking dickhead! Except he got a bit messed up and ended up throwing the pin into the cabin whilst holding onto the grenade himself. Fucking amazing. Woo! Psst. Oh no! The small scraps of what were left of Augusto were eventually discovered 3 days later in the mud of a small village about 70 kilometers south of Metro Manila. His older brother would later claim that Augusto was a misunderstood individual who always fancied himself having a go at skydiving but was never quite given the opportunity. Yeah, because every time I go skydiving, I take a fucking gun and a grenade with me, just in case I need to do some Tom Cruise shit. Also, there's a fantastic video of how Tom Cruise really did the Halo jump in, I think it's the Mummy, is it the Mummy movie? Whatever it is, it's wild, and it's so cool. And I mean, Tom Cruise is a little bit crazy, but also, that was a legendary move, Tom. And the comedy people said that we couldn't laugh at death. Here we are. Where there is smoke. Musa Shatui was sick to the back teeth of trying to flog steaks. The Jordanian immigrant ran a restaurant called Steak Time Subs in Westchester, Pennsylvania, but in 2006, he was fed up with slaving away for the benefit of greedy and ungrateful customers, and he was ready to flip his very last slab of meat. Musa decided that life would be a whole lot easier if he just hired a professional arsonist to torch the damn place so that he could collect the insurance money. So he hired a guy called Joshua Hunter to burn the restaurant to the ground. Joshua Hunter sounds like a spy name. Apparently in return for the promise of a $60,000 a year job. Dude, you burn the place down, where do you think you're gonna work? I'm hoping that Musa had thought this through properly and the job wasn't meant to be a chef position at Steak Time Subs. But I'm not quite sure how one goes about hiring a professional arsonist, as I imagine it'd be quite difficult to fact-check the CV and references. Yeah, dude, when you're hiring someone to do something criminal, I don't think you get that stuff. You just have to be like, go burn my shit down, and they'll be like, all right, where's the money? And it's like, do you take check? And they'll be like, no, cash. But however the process works, Musa made a mistake. It turns out that Joshua was a complete, hopeless, bloody amateur. Joshua tried on 3 separate occasions through the summer of 2006 to burn down the restaurant. His first lame attempt involved simply throwing a perfectly harmless Molotov cocktail through an open window. Later, he upped his game by dousing a few chairs with flammable liquid and setting them alight, only for the flames to quickly die down after a couple of minutes. Yeah, dude, I mean, furniture these days, it's hard to say. I don't know this, but everything's like flame retardant. Like, it doesn't burn anymore. I mean, it's really like, you gotta get a blaze going. You need an accelerant. Wow, this video is just full of tips for criminals. Following the third damp squib of an attempt, the local community were beginning to become concerned about these apparent hate crimes targeted towards the Jordanian immigrants. Musa was even asked to appear on the local 9 News channel, during which he had to feign defiance in the face of these terrible non-incidents. He told reporters, "I don't know who would do this, but if someone is trying to shut me out of business, it's not going to happen. This is my life, and nobody's going to take it away from me." This, I mean, normally, if your place tries to burn down 3 times, and I'm the insurance, investigator dude, I'd be like, dude, come on. Just 12 hours later, Musa was feeling frustrated about the lack of progress from his hired arsonist, so he decided to give him a helping hand. Along with his son Essa, he decided to make the job as so easy that even the cack-handed Joshua Hunter couldn't cock it up. Musa and Essa spent the night spreading gasoline all over the furnishings of the restaurant, so that all Joshua would have to do is throw a match through the window, or maybe another Molotov cocktail if he was feeling particularly reckless. Now, everyone deserves a little break after a rigorous session of work. Pouring gasoline all over the shop must have been strenuous for a few minutes for father and son, so they decided to take a 5-minute break and have a cigarette. No! Oh my god, it's Zoolander in real life! Wake me up before you Musa's wish finally came true when Steak Time sub spectacularly burst into flames, although sadly Musa and Essa got torched with it. They didn't die instantly. Over 80% of both men's bodies were burned, and they spent an agonizing few weeks in hospital before they eventually died from their injuries. That is horrible. We can't laugh at death. Slightly weirdly, Joshua Hunter was later imprisoned for 3 years for manslaughter and conspiracy to commit arson, even though he wasn't at the scene of the crime. He was possibly the only person in prison to be serving a sentence for not setting fire to a restaurant. Okay, he only got 3 years. I see why he should get 3 years, but for attempted arson. He didn't kill these dudes. He wasn't even there. He didn't even throw in the match. How did you get there, Courts? The Midas touch. The final entrant into our Criminal Darwin Awards deserves some sort of credit for thinking outside of the paint box, even if his plan was a bit spotty. 23-year-old James T. had decided to hold up a Sprint store in Sparkleberry Lane in Columbia, South Carolina in 2009. Okay, there's a place called Columbia in South Carolina. Okay, I bet they love cocaine. And then also, it's on a place called Sparkleberry Lane. Where do you live? Yeah, 23 Sparkleberry Lane. Along with a buddy, James burst into the store, pulled out guns, and stole wallets, purses, and credit cards from employees and customers before ordering everyone into the bathroom. When you're holding up a store packed with surveillance cameras, it's usually a good idea to make some kind of attempt to conceal your identity by wearing a balaclava or some kind of head covering. Yeah, if you've seen any movie ever, you know that's a good idea because people can do that thing. Identifying you. Yes. Identifying you. But James T had quite a distinctive and fresh take on the whole concealed identity strategy. He decided to disguise himself by covering his entire head in gold spray paint. Okay. Now, if you ever bought spray paint, and you might have come across certain warnings on the packaging which contain golden nuggets of advice about the toxic qualities of the paint. The metallic colors can be particularly pernicious, and it's generally a good rule of thumb to try and avoid inhaling the paint or getting any on your skin or in your eyes. I'm not sure if there's a specific warning on the cans which reads, "Do not cover your entire head in this stuff whilst carrying out a robbery," but I would assume that kind of goes without saying. Also, second time James Bond is coming up this episode, but have you not seen Goldfinger? Don't paint yourself gold. Everyone knows that. Also, why not just use gold makeup? Like white spray paint, dude. And that stuff's not going to come off. They're going to be looking for the golden-headed man. They're going to find you. Yeah, we're looking for a man who has golden hair. It's not that many. After stuffing all the stolen cash into their pockets, 2 burglars made their exit from the Sprint store, but James T's cunning disguise was to let him down quite badly. During the getaway, he began to develop trouble breathing. After coughing and wheezing for a few minutes, he was ultimately overpowered by the toxic fumes from the paint and dropped dead before he could make it back home. It killed him. Oh no! Just to make matters worse, it turns out that spraying his head in gold had been a totally crap disguise anyway. Witnesses to the robbery claimed that they could easily have testified to the identity of James T, just as they did with his accomplice, who ended up getting charged with armed robbery. He really should have gone with a balaclava. They're not even very expensive. They're probably cheaper than gold paint. Then again, it's nice to think that as a solitary cloaked figure on a beach in Blackpool looks up to the sky and notices that the cursed sun is coming out from behind the clouds, he can at least enjoy a little bit of a thoughtful chuckle as he packs up the deck chair, picks up his scythe, and gets back to another fun-packed day at the office. Oh, that closing, Danny. Wah! This has been Business Blaze. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you didn't, I would invite you to smash the dislike button and then purchase this shirt, which says, "Smash the dislike button." So that's about it, actually. Oh, you can do that at the link below or at purchthemerch.co for Columbia, South Carolina. See you next time. Gun, grenade, and a homemade parachute. Welcome to PAL Airlines.